So Fender introduced the 40th anniversary Squier lineup a couple of days ago, and I want to take a look at a couple of those just to see what we're getting. So I've got the 40th anniversary Strat Vintage Edition pulled up on the right, and the current Classic Vibe 50s on the left, because I think these two are most similar. And I want to compare some things here, because even though these guitars look very similar, there's a fairly significant difference in cost. The current Classic Vibe is $459, and this 40th anniversary Vintage Edition is $599. So that's roughly $150. That's over 25% the cost of the guitar, the cost of the Classic Vibe to get into the 40th anniversary. So what are we getting for that extra money? So the first thing I'm noticing, the Classic Vibe actually is offered in 4 colors. You can get the 40th in 3 colors. These are both classic. We've got the Fiesta Red here on the left and Seafoam Green on the right. They're listing this as a satin Seafoam Green. So it's not a gloss finish, which is interesting. The Classic Vibe does have a gloss finish. This Fiesta Red, which is beautiful. You know, I think it probably costs less money, or at least it takes less time to do a satin finish, like the 40th anniversary has versus a gloss finish that the Classic Vibe has. But anyway, the Classic Vibe is also available in this white blonde finish, which is pretty. It's blonde. You can't really see the grain much through it. The real blonde finish, or at least an original blonde finish, would be over an ash body, and it would be fairly translucent. We'd be able to see the ash grain through it. So this looks fairly opaque, but it's a pretty color. And this is kind of interesting. This is the two-tone Sunburst. I want to compare this to the this Vintage Edition 40th in a second, because they're really quite different. And of course, black. It's available in black. This looks it's a very classic-looking guitar here. Very classic-looking guitar. So compare that to the new 40th anniversary Vintage Edition on the right. Of course, we have the satin Seafoam Green. It's also available in satin Sonic Blue, which is pretty. We'll get to the gold pickguard in a minute. That's not a feature that would have been available on any period Strat from or any Stratocaster from the 50s or 60s as original pickguard. But they put this on this 40th anniversary edition. The other color that's available is a two-tone Sunburst. Now, at least the one I've looked at in this picture here to me is kind of odd. This is there's the black outer layer of the Sunburst. Get this to come up, is very wide. Right, so there's not a lot of sunburst to this. It's mostly black. Compare this to the two-tone Sunburst on the Classic Vibe. This is more of what I expect to see with a two-tone Sunburst on a Fender. So it's quite different. The pickguard that's on the 40th anniversary too, even though this is showing black, this is, my understanding, this is still an anodized aluminum pickguard. So this is actually a metal pickguard. This, in this black finish, looks almost like something you would have seen on a GNL. I don't know what the current pickguards look like, but they offered a metal pickguard that had kind of a textured finish at one time. So that's interesting. I don't know if I like it or not. I'll say I prefer the Classic Vibe, the classic look. Now, part of that's because that's what I'm used to seeing, I'm sure. But back to the anodized gold pickguard. I don't know. This is something you would have seen on Jazz Masters from this period, and then also on P basses. They would have had the gold anodized pickguard. So it's a little bit of a mashup for Fender to do this on a Strat for the 40th anniversary Squiers. So okay, so that's the colors, but what are we getting as far as specs? So one thing we know, we're getting the gold anodized pickguard, but that can't be where the whole $150 is going that we're spending up for this guitar. So I'm going to click on the specs here and take a look. So what exactly is different? The Fender actually has a pine body, which is something that Leo Fender did on some early Fenders, some early prototypes, I think, and then Fender's lately brought that back. Pine is easily renewable wood, and also you can get really nice light pieces of it. It's fairly soft, But we're seeing that the current American Original 2s have some pine offerings. I don't know if this is the same pine that's on the Squier. The 40th anniversary is this Naito wood. I'm not real familiar with this. It's a fairly soft wood too. I know that. And I've seen it on some of the Ibanez's. I think Harley Benton's using it some. I know it's from, or at least I think it's from Southeast Asia. It's a renewable wood. So similar to the pine in that respect. Maybe that's going to be a good wood for guitar bodies. They both have a maple neck. It's C-shaped. I bet they're pretty similar. 21 frets. Interestingly, unlike the MIM Fenders, the Squiers are getting a real bone nut. And that's with the 40th anniversary and the classic vibe. So it's kind of interesting. The classic vibe series has a tinted gloss urethane neck, so it's going to be a kind of that nice yellow vintage-y finish. This is gloss. The 40th has a satin finish urethane neck. They're both 9.5 inch radius, which is not traditional for a 50s Fender. Those would be 7 1/4, but the modern reissues are 9.5. The American reissues. And they also have, the modern American reissues have these narrow, taller, vintage tall frets. I think this is probably the same fret that they're putting in those. I think that's also what's in the current the American Professional 2 series. And these both have head truss rod adjusters. So if we get down to the electronics, they're both Alnico single coils. I think they do list that the 40th anniversary is an Alnico 5 magnet. And but I don't know if that's listed in the copy for the classic vibe, but I bet it's the same pickup. They both have a 5-way switch, 2 tones and master volume, and the tone control. One of the tone control is dedicated to and works on the bridge pickup, which is nice. These both have the 6 saddle vintage style bridges, aged white plastic. The one difference, one of them has the Squier neck plate. The other one has the 40th anniversary logo on the neck plate. The classic vibe is listed as nickel hardware, and on the 40th anniversary it's aged chrome. Everything else appears to be the same about these. So a couple of points. So what's different about these? Well, a satin urethane finish on the 40th anniversary, the gold anodized pickguard or the black anodized pickguard, and the aged chrome hardware on the 40th anniversary. So, is that worth a $150 upgrade? I don't know. You'll have to make the decision about that. The aged chrome hardware, so this is noticeable somewhat. This doesn't look like, it's not like you'd see on like a custom shop series with the custom shop relicking. It does look aged, though. You can see in this picture of the tuners, and they both have vintage style tuners, it does look somewhat aged. You can see in the heads for the screws, you can almost see a little rust in there. There's just kind of a patina over the whole thing compared to if we look on the classic vibe series. These obviously look brand new. You can see how shiny they are. There's no patina to them, no rust on the screw heads. I'm not sure how that looks. I don't know what I feel about that. The patinaed or aged hardware makes more sense when you have some aging on the body also. When the rest of the guitar looks brand new and you only have the aging on the hardware, I don't know, does that look odd? Maybe. I don't know. The aged hardware and the gold anodized pickguard, it's interesting. Yeah, is it worth $150? I don't know. So these are interesting. This is called the Gold Edition, and for one reason it has the gold hardware. Interestingly enough, or not. And this is available. This is the Strat version. This is available in 3 colors. This Sienna Burst, which is pretty. This is a neat color too. Ruby red metallic. It's probably very hard to photograph this. This is a very dark, almost blood red color. And a Lake Placid blue, which seems to always be in the lineup somewhere. It's a popular color. So what's different about this one? Well, a couple of things. This one also has the gold anodized pick guard, but we're getting gold hardware with this. We're getting a bound and blocked fingerboard, which is very unique and unusual on a Stratocaster. This is something you would have seen on Jazz Masters, not from the 50s and early 60s, not until about 1966, I think, the blocks and binding finally showed up on the Jazz Master. And then the Jazz basses would have had this also, but not on a Strat. And this is personal preference. Everybody's going to have things they like and don't like, and if you like this, that's cool, because I can see where people do or would like this. It doesn't look right to me. I don't know about blocks and binding on a Strat, but I'll get used to it. I don't really like blocks and binding on a Fender Precision bass either. It doesn't look right to me. That's something that looks right on a 70s style jazz bass. But it's funny, you get things just sort of burned into our brains. If I had always looked at the Strat, if it had been available in 1954 with blocks and binding, and that's what I'd always looked at, then it'd look pretty strange without it. So, I'm sure that's what it is. But similar specs to the vintage. It's the Naito body wood. This one, let's see. This is actually gloss polyurethane though, instead of the satin polyurethane that's on the vintage style. Narrow, tall frets. It has the bone nut. The Fender designed Alnico pickups. Probably the same thing that's in the vintage and also the classic vibe. I'm going to guess. Aged hardware, again, the gold plated hardware and the anodized gold pick guard. And of course there's a Tele version of this too. And again, like the Strat, for me, it looks unusual. I'll get used to it. And look, I know gold hardware can be a little bit, people are a little divided on that. I'm not used to looking at it on Fenders. Although Fenders were available as special order, some of the Fenders with gold hardware, even back into the 1960s. And they're very rare, but there are original 1960s Fenders, Stratocasters, Jazz Masters with gold hardware. So it could have been ordered that way. You would not have seen a Telecaster from the 50s or 60s with blocks and binding, but very interesting guitar. This is also available in Sherwood Green, which was a Fender custom color available in the 1960s. Super rare. You won't see a lot of original Sherwood Green Fenders, but really neat color. Of course, I'm sure everybody knows all these 50s and 60s Fender colors were car colors from the period. The Fender wasn't able to go to the paint store and buy guitar paint. He had to use what was available, and it was nitrocellulose lacquer being used for car finishes, and I think acrylic lacquer too on some of the finishes. So he was very influenced by the car industry, and his idea was to be able to build guitars the way cars were being built in sort of assembly line fashion. And that's what he came up with, the ability to build these instruments with, you didn't have to have highly skilled craftsmen. They could sort of cut these things out and bolt them together. So yeah, this appears to have the same specifications as the vintage model. The fretboard on the fretboards on all these are either going to be maple or laurel wood, Indian laurel. We're seeing that on a lot of guitars now. So the cost on these, $599, $600 for these guitars, which is a lot of money. I think a lot of people will have some concerns about Squiers in the $600 price range. But if you look at the inflation on all guitars, the price, everything's gone up. You look at the Gibson stuff and the whole Fender line. I mean, peanut butter's gone up. Everything's gone up. And I got my first Squier in the 1980s. Actually, it was a Squier jazz bass. I was a kid, and I still have the receipt for that bass, and it was $460 new. This was one of the main Japan Squiers, one of the early ones. $460 new, which I looked up earlier today, just on one of these cost of inflation calculator apps. And according to the one I looked at, $460 in 1986 would be over $1,100 now, $1,170 in today's money. So that's what a Squier cost then. That was just a garden variety Squier Fender jazz bass. In fact, I don't think they offered a lot of options. I think you could get it in white or black. There may have been a sunburst. That was without a case. So, is $600 a bad price? I don't know. A lot cheaper than $1,170. But yeah, so those are some of the new Fender 40th anniversary Squiers. What do you think? I think they're interesting. I like the colors. So, thanks for watching.